Right, so we've got the Hwam, and it's a 3120, and you know that because you bought it. So just to I'm going to show you around it. So obviously, as you know, the door just pulls open and closes. Part of the servicing on these is you get a little tube of wax, copper wax, and you've got a little bearing on there and a little bit on there, and part of servicing, just general maintenance. I reckon annual. But if it gets a bit dry in here and it starts to squeak, or it feels like it's not closing like as it should do now, then just give it a little bit of a lubrication. So down here we've got the ash pan. The ash pan must be closed, so it's got a little bit of a rope around the bottom there, so you must keep that closed. Otherwise the autopilot function won't operate properly because it's going to be drawing air through the ash pan. And you've also got a little riddler here that turns the grate round, and that shakes the ashes into the ash pan, which is just down here, as I say. The ash pan's on a roller, so you can just pull it straight out and it will just sit back onto the roller like a drawer. And then you've got the control down here. So the thing is on this, it's got the autopilot, so it controls the air automatically by the amount of heat that's in the stove. So obviously, when it needs more air, it will draw more in automatically, but you need to be able to control it, because otherwise it'll be either too hot or too cold. So you've got the control down here, and it's pretty obvious which is which because you've got a little volume control. So clockwise is high, anti-clockwise is low. So to get the fire going, we have it in the clockwise setting, so it's got maximum heat output. So top-down method. So this is the method that we recommend for using a stove, particularly when it's got a big door and you've got a flue system. So when you've got a flue system like this, it's cold, full of cold air, and then you're going to light a fire. And your fire, the heat from the fire wants to go inside the flue, but cold air is heavy, so it's going to push the smoke or the heat down into the fire. So we need to force heat into here to get it to warm up. The top-down method means that what you're doing is you're lighting it from the very top. The fire lighters, which are the little wound-up straw things, which are excellent, they get going first, and those will burn for a good 10-15 minutes. They're sending heat into the flue, so they're gently warming the flue up before the kindling starts to burn, and then you've got the logs at the bottom. So it's almost like a pyramid of fuel. So the idea behind a top-down method is that you don't have to keep opening and closing the door to refuel it. So the traditional method is kindling at the bottom, fire lighters, light the fire lighters, get your kindling going, start to add wood. But every time you're opening the door, you're allowing a bit of smoke into the room, which you might not even realise. And some people go, oh, it smells lovely, but it's not doing you a lot of good. So we need to eliminate that. And by doing it this way, you light the fire, you walk away, leave it, and then after sort of half an hour, 25 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, until the logs have started burning really nicely at the bottom, you can just leave it. They recommend using sort of optimum size logs, no bigger than that, about 1 kilogram. So really, once this has started burning down, you should be able to put something this sort of size on, and then you can start to regulate the control by turning it about halfway, just so it's not burning flat out. So I'm going to get it fired up, and these are brilliant, but matches do the same thing, strangely enough. So if you find that you get a bit of condensation in the side of the stove at this point, they just recommend cracking the door just off the latch like that. What that does is it just builds up a little bit more air going into the firebox, and it just gets it going a bit quicker. So if I close that now, it looks like it's good. The thing is, if it's cold in here and hot in there, you'll get condensation building up on the glass. Over the course of time, that condensation, it will make the glass sort of frosted. It will kind of discolour it, and it's not a cheap glass. It's curved, so if it's curved, it's expensive, so we want to look after it. So we haven't got any condensation in here, just a tiny little bit now going. But if it is really cold in here and you light the fire in there and it does get condensation, you then just crack the door just for a couple of minutes, just while it builds up a little bit of heat, and then close the door. Okay. So as we are now, we're getting the fire lighters going, and that'll hopefully take to the kindling, and then it will burn down into the tower, and then that's it. The recommendation is that when you're reloading the fire, you don't reload it when there's flames. So the principle being is the fact that you burn your fuel down into embers, hot orange embers in the bottom of the fire, and then when you've got no flames and you've just got nice hot orange embers, you should be able to open the door nice and gradually, put a log on it, close the door, and the autopilot will automatically do its thing. It will open up the air controls to what we call a primary setting, and that will get the air into the bottom of the fire, and it will get it going really quickly. And then that will automatically close off as the stove got up to temperature. So it really just does its own thing. It's pretty clever and easy. But that's going now quite nicely now. Just while that's getting going, operations, we've talked about that. It is literally that control. The door, it's an air-cooled handle. So although you've got a glove in the bottom here, just down there, you shouldn't necessarily need a glove. I mean, obviously to put a log on it and what have you, but you know, it's down there anyway. But this shouldn't get mega hot. It should stay reasonably cool to touch. That's the principle behind it. We just touched on earlier about the cleaning side of it. So we'll send you a link anyway, but I recommend a dry microfiber cloth just to dust it down on a day-to-day basis, the outside. Don't put water on it. It hates water. Cast iron and steel, they don't like moisture particularly. So if you get a bit of a mark on it, or you know, some splats or anything, sorry, I had to bring that up. If you get anything on it that won't wipe off with a dry cloth, Wonder wipes or some sort of household wipes, silicone wipes, that sort of thing, I'll send you a link. And then you can wipe that onto the stove, onto the metal, and dry it. So never leave moisture standing on the glass, on the metal. You shouldn't need to clean the glass, but if you do, and as you're getting used to the fire, you can sometimes find that you just need to give it a little bit of a wipe now and again just to freshen it up. Obviously, when it's cold, open the door, get a damp cloth or one of the wipes, dab it in the ash, wipe it on the glass, and it'll bring the glass up nice and clean, and then dry it with a clean cloth. You can buy things like Hob Bright, ceramic hob cleaner, that sort of thing. That does the same thing, but ash and a moist cloth is free, so that's always better. Emptying it. So don't religiously keep the ash pan. You don't have to empty it very often. Again, if you're using it every night, maybe once every couple of weeks, keep an eye on it. Just, you know, when you light the stove after sort of 4 or 5 days, just pull the ash pan out, see how much ash is in there, and then just empty it if you need to. But you don't have to empty it every day. And the idea is that you want to build up a bed of ash in the bottom of the fire to light your fuel on top of, like you've got on the other one. So always keep a bed of ash, but obviously when it starts to spill out, you give it a bit of a riddle with the riddling grate, and that will shake the ashes into the ash pan, and then you're back again. So you shouldn't need to be emptying it too often, but just leave the ash inside there. The fire bricks. As you can see, they're just blackening up a little bit at the minute as we're getting the fire going for the first time, and that'll just be the dust and whatever you settling. They will clean up. So if the fire's hot and it's enjoying itself and it's having a lovely time, the glass will stay clean, the fire bricks will clean themselves up, and it'll all be great. If you're burning wood that's a little bit moist, a little bit too moisture content in it, or logs that are too big for the stove, so if you put a log on that's like bigger than this, for example, then, and if the log's smouldering and you've not got flames, get the control fully up. If it still doesn't go, the log's too big. So you might need to just split a few logs. It's always better to burn sort of slightly smaller logs because you'll get more of an intense heat from them. But for a longer burn, you can put a slightly bigger log on, but just, it's trial and error. All stoves work differently depending on how much air there is in the room, the type of the wood, the moisture content, the height of the flue. There's so many different factors, and you'll find your own sort of technique and your own way with it. But the fire bricks in the inside of the stove, these are specific to this stove, and they ain't cheap again. So don't throw your logs in, place them in. You know, just place them in the bottom there, and it'll be absolutely fine. And the fire bricks should last for years. They're good quality, but yeah, all the inside components are removable as well. So as far as servicing is concerned, there are instructions in there, and they do sort of suggest from time to time just dropping down that baffle plate, which just literally just lifts up and down. It's quite self-explanatory for obvious reasons. I won't show you right now, but it does. There's 2 retainer hooks at the top, and the actual baffle plate, it just lifts down, and then you can just make sure that there's no debris drop down the flue. But as far as servicing maintenance is concerned, we go through all of that, and obviously Wayne's here as well when he talk to you about that when he does it. The first time we have a proper fire in it, this won't be today, but the first time you get a really hot fire, you will get a smell off it, and it's a completely normal sort of procedure while you're getting the fire getting up to temperature for the first time. So you won't necessarily get a lot from today because we've only got some small logs in the bottom and some kindling, so we're getting it warm but not red hot today. But you will find that when you light it for the first time, you get it really hot, you'll get like a chemical smell off it, and that is totally normal, so don't ring me. Just bear with it. Push through it and get out the other side. So it is a completely normal procedure. So the cast iron, all the paint, all the fire bricks, all the components, the flue as well, it's got an oil coating on it to protect it in transport, and obviously that's got to all dissipate and burn off. The paint also on the stove, the fireproof paint that they use, has to go through what we call a hardening process, which is called which cures the cast iron and cures the steel, so it makes it harder, and the paint on it has to essentially harden, and it's done through the first proper fire. So get it nice and hot, and then you'll push that smell out of the way. If it comes back the second time, you've not had it hot enough, so get it roaring away, okay? So just to show you the control at the bottom. So obviously it's maximum now. The instructions do stipulate that once the kindling started to burn, you can turn that down a little bit, but I'm just gonna turn that down right down to low, and probably shouldn't do this, but it was just really to demonstrate it. But I'm going to turn it back up. So we'll leave it on to 3/4. So when the dot's pointing halfway up here, that's about halfway. So you've got maximum and you've got minimum. So yeah, clockwise. Clockwise is high, anti-clockwise is low, and there's a little volume control on there as well. So obviously you're going to turn it fully up, and then when it's pointing to sort of 3 o'clock, it's high. When it's pointing to midday, it's about halfway, and when it's pointing to 9, it's low. So there we are, and I think that will do us.
So today then,